I want my chips with the dip. That's all I know. I don't want my chips plain. I want my chips with the dip. So bring them this. You see what my hat says? Not finals, not Eastern Conference, not nice try, or see you next year. Champions. Let's go. Talk.
That's who did I steal from? Price tags on making the world feel some. They don't have enough to satisfy a real one.
Logical Raptors Fanatic.
Shoot trying to miss. Like every shot,
Logical Raptors Fanatic.
try to make it, so I was gonna act surprised.
Logical Raptors Fanatic.
Love the game of basketball. I mean, it's just more question you have to ask me in order for me to tell you about.
Logical Raptors Fanatic.
I just can't give you a whole spiel. I don't even know where you're sitting at.
Salute, real ones. Project Truth always. Mike G back here with Logical Raptors Fanatic. And today we're starting anew. And we're starting to talk about the new season. Free agency's around the corner. We just picked up our draft pick. Welcome, Grady. And we're going to start off with the CBA changes and how it affects the Raptors. Because there's a couple different things that are really interesting in the CBA that need to be talked on. And I think there's a little bit of confusion swirling around different things. So we'll go to, I guess, the most accurate information possible at this moment and interpret what kind of effects are going to become the Raptors in this new CBA. So the first part we're going to start off with, obviously, one of the biggest changes, an in-season tournament. So let's go through the details here and figure out how this is going to go. So the NBA will introduce an in-season tournament likely as part of the 2023-2024 schedule. Here are some details. So bullet point 1. Teams will be divided into 6 intra-conference groups of 5 teams apiece and play each of the other teams in their group once. The first round of the tournament will consist of 4 games, 2 home, 2 road, that are part of the regular season schedule. So pretty much 6 groups of 5 teams each, so all 30 teams are going to be in this in-season tournament, where 4 of their regular season games will contribute to the first round of this tournament. So let's continue on. Bullet point number 2. The 6 group winners and the top 2 wildcards will advance to the 8-team single elimination portion of the tournament. Tiebreakers are still being determined. The final 4 will be played at a neutral location. Las Vegas is reportedly receiving consideration. So basically, there will be 6 groups of 5 teams. So you play each of the 4 other teams in your group once, and determining who wins the most games, that winner and the 2 closest runners up, like baseball sort of, in a way where they had the wild card as the next teams running up, and then the winners of the division obviously got their playoff spot, right? So they're doing a similar format to like kind of the way baseball is, right? In the way they seed their playoffs. So let's continue on. The round robin, quarterfinal, and semifinal games will count towards a team's regular season record, but the final won't. So pretty much, I guess when the brackets are set up, they're gonna wait till you face a certain team to count it as a tournament game, I guess. Or they might have a certain scheduling like place where they can shift around a couple teams to make this work out better. But it seems like they're just gonna have regular season games that are so-called part of the in-season tournament, and then the finals won't be like part of those games, so it'll be an extra game, and we'll go into that right now. So NBA teams are expected to initially have 80 regular season games on their schedule. The leftover games for the teams that don't make the single elimination portion of the in-season tournament will be scheduled at a later date. while the 2 teams that make the final of the tournament will end up playing 83 games. So it increases their season by 1, the final. And then, so you're not technically playing more games other than if you were to go to the final. And let's find out what they win for winning this tournament, right? So prize money for the in-season tournament will be $500K per player for the winning team, $200K per player for the runner-up, $100K per player for the semi-final losers, and $50K per player for the quarterfinal losers. So there is kind of like, you do get some money no matter what, and you're going to play these games no matter what. So I guess there is a bonus for players, and they're making more money now. But we'll see how this works out. Like, I'm not going to down it right away. These are just the initial details, like it said here. So a lot of these details haven't been finalized because they have to be drafted into a document that has all these negotiated outlines. Like, obviously the owners and the national or the NBA Players Association were negotiating about a new CBA. These are the points they negotiated, and they have a certain idea of how things are going to work. But when you go to contract language, it has to be airtight. So it has to be written in that weird type of way where they're talking in like weird logic that's hard to understand, but it's purposeful in the way that it's supposed to be interpreted by a lawyer and by the courts in case things go to that point. So I think it's still going through drafts. And well, probably not at this point, but it was before. And then obviously July 1st, we're going to probably get copies or whatever happens then. But these are the main ideas of what was outlined in the in-season tournament. So let's move forward. And now on to the second tax apron. So last year we talked about the first apron, and then I said once you go past the luxury tax line, certain things happen with your mid-level exception and your biannual exception, and certain things go out of whack. I didn't go into the detail, it would have made the video longer, but we can talk about that here today. So I'm going to go over what it says first, and then we'll explain it out. So the NBA's current tax apron is set a few $1,000,000 above the luxury tax line. For instance, in 2022-2023, the tax line is $150,267,000, and the tax apron is $156,983,000, which is about a difference of 6.7 million. So teams above that tax apron aren't permitted to acquire players via sign and trade, use more than the taxpayer's portion of the mid-level exception, which is 6 million. So they couldn't use more than 6 million of the 10 million they had, or even use the biannual exception at all. So that's where the part where I said like your options for signing players becomes restricted. So managing your cap is a good option to keep your avenues available to sign players, right? So now what teams have done is try to stack up on max contracts and use this mid-level exception, so about 6 million each year, and just keep bubbling up or ballooning up their salary. And then they would do trades where they would only have 75% of the salary outgoing but take 100% in. So they're adding 25% more salary cap through trades, and that's how they balloon the salary to a point where they could afford all this talent on one team. And that's where I think the NBA is trying to really stop that type of building, where they want people to kind of figure out their team before they start locking things in. Or if you're trading a piece, it's going to be 100% salary for 100% salary, and you're not going to be able to balloon up your roster like your salary cap to enormous fashion like what Golden State did. They're trying to stop the Golden State thing. In the new CBA, the NBA will implement a second tax apron that will be 17.5 million above the tax line. So they're extending the first tax apron to 17.5. But once you go over that line, some new restrictions come in. So teams above the second apron will face a new set of restrictions as follows. So what the first portion of that paragraph was outlining was the first tax apron, which will operate as usual, and you will only get like 6 million of the mid-level, no biannual exception, no sign-in trades, right? If you're past that 6 million 0.7 number, right? But now there's a second number that's past that now, and it's about 10 million more forward. And if you push into this zone, this is the restrictions that will be on you. So they won't have access to the taxpayer mid-level exceptions. So no $6 million, none of that 10 million is usable if you're in the second tax apron. So that will stop teams from being able to sign guys once they're already past a certain line and full up on salary, right? And then second point here, they won't be able to trade away their first round pick that's 7 years away. Beginning in 2024-2025, if the team remains above the second apron in 2 of the next 4 seasons, that draft pick was frozen for trade purposes, will fall to the end of the first round. So I think this is probably the most interesting part of the second tax apron, right? They are trying to stop teams from being able to trade future picks away so a team will take on salary and they can load up on like other salary or whatever, you know what I mean? Like you have to have a team with cap space in order for them to take cap space and do all these other things. So they want to stop the incentive for other teams to like kind of give other teams more players by freezing their draft picks and freezing their options to get talent in the second tax apron. So if you're spending too much money, we don't want you acquiring more talent. You shouldn't be able to. That's what a salary cap kind of thing is supposed to be about, right? And there's another caveat that the pick will fall to the end of the first round. So even if that team doesn't look at trading that pick and wants to get up on some cheap, good, like kind of first round talent in a sense, it's not going to be anywhere close to usable in a sense of where you get the biggest bang for your buck. Like Scotty on a rookie contract right now is a lot of value, where they're trying to reverse that, where they're making sure that player that they draft isn't as good. So like they're trying to limit the ways that teams can get better once into that second tax apron. So let's continue. If they stay under the tax apron for the next 3 of the next 4 seasons, the pick will become unfrozen. Interesting. So even after this period of 2 years in the second tax apron in 4 years, if you get out of the tax apron from 3 of the 4 next years, your pick 7 years away gets unfrozen. You could trade it, and I guess it doesn't fall anymore. We need specifics. See, that's where the context of the contract language will make this very specific how this is intending to work. But we can get an outline of what's going on here, what they're trying to do. They're trying to slowly chip away at the assets that have been used to balloon these teams up, like future picks 7 years away, to get another max contract guy and all this kind of stuff, right? So let's continue on. They won't be able to sign free agents on the buyout market. Interesting. So any of those end of season buyout candidates, they won't have any rights to sign any of them. Like, they won't be able to get any replacements. They won't be able to get any of these cheap, like, Westbrooks at the buyout market like the Clippers have been doing. So they're trying to stop this kind of where teams waive players because they want to go to a better team. Well, if that team's spending too much money, you're not allowed to sign there, pretty much, is what they're doing. So they're stopping that kind of like John Wall kind of Westbrook move where they sign for $6 million and stuff on a really stacked team, and the team is using their taxpayer portion of their mid-level exception to do that. So they still have that even though they're over the tax apron. So now they made a second tax apron where you're not allowed to do that. So they won't be permitted to send out cash in trades. So remember the rule, you can trade up to $3 million in cash for certain players. You can't balloon the salary up anymore by sending out cash anymore if you're in the second apron. Like, they're stopping your ability to acquire salary when you're in the second apron, aka talent, like salary, talent, you know what I mean? So they won't be able to take back more salary in a trade than they send out. And this is where the other part where that's why they quicken the trades before this implemented, because they would have to take back the same salary. So trading Bradley Beal, the Suns would have to send like the full amount of Bradley Beal's contract in player amount to the Wizards if they did the trade after June or July 1st, right? So that's why they hurried the trade. It wasn't because of like anything else other than that. They were going to have to take more money on, which pushes them into this second tax apron more, which limits their options of building defense around these three max level contract guys. So like, see how it works? Like, if you don't have the support built in already, you're not going to be able to build that support. So no matter if you get 3 superstars or 4 superstars, there won't be anyone to play with them. You won't have any methods other than mins, pretty much, is what it's trying to get down into the nitty gritty of things. You won't have any picks to trade to upgrade the roster. There won't be any, they're lessening the avenues of those teams to build in that second tax haven. So let's continue on. They won't be able to aggregate salary for matching purposes in trades. Interesting. So they can't up salary or try to do anything funny like renegotiate a person's salary to give them more money. Like Miles Turner, remember how he renegotiated his contract mid-season? A team can't do that in order to just match trade purposes now. They've kind of already sussed out this kind of weird back rule that was going to form, and they've already stomped it out. So you can't really overpay a guy just to trade for other guys because the other team doesn't mind paying him an extra whatever, right? To get your picks or whatever you're trading of value in that trade to do whatever you're doing, right? So the second tax apron is expected to be phased in over the next 2 seasons. So we don't know exactly which of these changes will be implemented the first season, but most likely all of them will be implemented in 2 years. So we'll see how that affects free agency, but I'm not seeing too much here for the Raptors because I showed that plan where we could keep everyone, and Gary Trent Jr. taking his player option makes things even better. Like, it's easier to keep the guys. We don't even have to slant the contracts all weird. We can give them proper numbers and stuff and like do all this other things, right? So ultimately this affects those teams that have the supermax players and stuff, and maybe us one day, maybe if we do well and we decide to keep more guys on as we push, we might decide to take one of these 2 of the next 4 years into the second apron. You know what I mean? And maybe let our draft pick freeze and then just come out of it for the 3 of the 4 next years. So like, I don't know. It's Masai's really good at signing contracts and managing the roster, so I'm not afraid of this rule necessarily. Even if it froze our pick, we don't really trade our 7-year away pick. Other than it falling down in the first round, that's pretty bad. And we got to find out the trigger on that. But other than that, I don't think it's really affecting us too much because we don't partake in a lot of this different stuff. So I'm going to end it off here, and part 2 will come next weekend. Housekeeping. I always want to start off by saluting and thanking the real ones for the likes, the comments, the subs. Your support during the end of season series was really great, and I'm just going to try to continue and try to make things a little bit shorter, but a little bit more detailed in certain fashions, and use a lot of the raw data and bring the evidence forward, right? So it'll be some good times. And I always want to salute Raptors Freak Nation and Raptors Freak Lex, 9:30 a.m. Eastern, every day talking Raptors, really just keeping everyone connected in a sense of a fan base, really having a community there that's really fun. And I just want to salute everyone from there. And I know a bunch of you guys really support, guys and gals support. So I'm just going to leave it off there. Salute the real ones. Project Truth always. Logical Raptors. Fanatic out. Mike G. Mike Ch.
Oh man, I love my team. Man, I love my team. I would die for them.
Not just cause I want to, cause I got to. Put the squad on your back, did the impossible. It's only logical, it's fitted from the heart.
Problems hit the gym, they all work out. MVP, MVP. Even next season looking like a breeze.